All right, let's dive right in. Today, we're going to explore a really chilling theory, the idea that our own consciousness is trapped in a kind of prison, a prison built from the trauma of our very own birth. We'll be looking at how psychology, ancient mysticism, and even mathematics have been woven together to map out this so-called dark consciousness. So, to kick things off, let's just sit with this quote for a second from the researcher Jim DeKorne. Life is just a serotonin hallucination. This really sets the stage, doesn't it? It forces us to just throw out our old assumptions about what we even call reality. What we're going to do here is connect the dots between three very different, very complex fields. You've got the psychological research of Stanislav Grof, the mystical, shamanic insights of Jim DeKorne, and then the really strange mathematical theories of Willis Whitehead. And when you put them all together, they create this single and frankly pretty unsettling model of our minds. So, our journey today has 5 parts. First up, we'll look at the map itself, a map of consciousness. Then, we'll dive into this idea of a prison of matter. After that, we're going to face the agony of rebirth, uncover some esoteric keys for liberation, and finally, learn how to navigate that strange territory after death known as the Bardo. Okay, part 1, a map of consciousness. So the thinkers we're studying basically argue that because our modern culture is so terrified of talking about death, we've completely lost touch with some of the deepest, most fundamental parts of our own psyche. Let's start mapping that hidden territory. And these are our map makers, our cartographers of inner space. Stanislav Grof gives us the psychological framework based on his clinical research. Jim DeKorne provides the shamanic, kind of cosmological context. And Willis Whitehead, well, he comes in with the underlying mathematical and geometric code that holds it all together. Part 2, the prison of matter. And this is where things start to get really dark. We're getting to the absolute core of the crisis here. This feeling of being completely and totally trapped. Not just, in a room, but trapped in existence itself. Stanislav Grof had a name for this state. He called it basic perinatal matrix 2. It's a psychological, no-exit hell. Imagine a universe that was once safe and warm, suddenly turning into a crushing, hostile trap. He believed this feeling is a direct echo of the biological trauma of birth, that specific moment when contractions start, but the way out is still sealed shut. But what if that feeling, that sense of a hostile trap, what if it wasn't just in your head? Jim DeKorne's work adds this Gnostic layer to it. He identifies the guards of this prison as Archons, these parasitic beings that, he claims, actually feed on the despair and fear that this state generates. And this is really where it all clicks together. It's incredible, right? Grof is describing a psychological hell. DeKorne sees a cosmic illusion guarded by parasites, and Whitehead defines it all with math, as an endless, repeating cycle. They are all describing the exact same prison, just using completely different languages. So how is this prison built? What's the code that runs it? Well, according to Willis Whitehead, our reality is fundamentally built on mathematics. He points to a really simple equation, dividing a circle's circumference by its diameter, or 22 divided by 7. The result isn't just pi. For him, it was an infinitely repeating decimal that he believed was the literal blueprint for our reality. And that repeating sequence is 142857, over and over and over. Whitehead calls this the infinite number of evolution. It's the numerical code, the mathematical seal of the soul's endless cyclical entrapment in the material world. It's the very rhythm of the prison itself. Part 3, the agony of rebirth. Okay, so we've talked about being trapped. But what happens when you try to fight back? We're moving now from that static, hopeless dread of the prison to the violent, chaotic struggle to escape it. And this, DeKorne argues, isn't just a psychological battle, it's an energetic harvest. Grof calls this next stage BPM 3, and unlike the crushing, static pressure of BPM 2, this phase is pure, raw, high-energy struggle. The mind is just flooded with imagery of titanic battles, sadomasochism, and all sorts of taboo-breaking rituals. It's a place where the lines between agony and ecstasy completely blur and dissolve. So why all this intensity? Why is the struggle so extreme? Well, DeKorne's theory is that it's all by design. He uses the term louche to describe this potent, refined emotional energy that's created by mixing terror with arousal. And he claims this louche is the primary food source for the Archons. In this view, our struggle is literally their feast. You know, this stage also mirrors the raw, messy biology of birth itself, forcing a confrontation with blood, waste, and all kinds of bodily fluids. In alchemy, this is known as putrefactio, the process of rot and decay. The idea is you have to descend into the lowest, messiest parts of material existence before you can be spiritually purified and reborn. Part 4, the esoteric keys. Okay, so if we're trapped in this mathematically sealed parasitic system, how in the world do you get out? Is there a way? You bet. This section explores what you might call the technology of liberation. Willis Whitehead offers a key, and it's made of pure geometry. I mean, just look at this. A cross is just a cube that's been unfolded. So if the cube represents our 3D material prison, then unfolding it represents breaking out of those limitations and expanding into a higher dimension. It's literally thinking outside the box. And he even described a practical tool for this escape, the magic mirror. The idea was to use a black-backed mirror to represent the void itself. Then, through weeks of intense, disciplined focus, you would charge it with your own energy to create a kind of portal. He believed this could actually lead to contact with intelligences outside of our prison system. So these are tools for the conscious explorer, things you can try while you're alive. But what about the one journey that every single one of us has to take? What happens when the prison of the body finally dissolves at the moment of death? Part 5, Navigating the Bardo. To understand what happens next, our thinkers turn to a really ancient map, the Tibetan Book of the Dead, and they didn't see it as some religious book, but as a practical, no-nonsense survival guide for the soul. So, after death, the soul is said to encounter a whole series of terrifying visions known as the wrathful deities. We're talking about monstrous, animal-headed beings that threaten to tear you apart, to dismember and consume your soul. This is it. This is the final and most intense test of consciousness. And this right here, this brilliantly illustrates the final synthesis. Grof, the psychologist, he looks at these deities and sees them as projections of our own mind, powerful forces meant to shatter our ego. But DeKorne, the Gnostic shaman, he sees them as the Archons in their true form, making one last, terrifying attempt to harvest the soul's energy through pure fear. But here's the amazing part. In both views, the key to escape is identical. The soul has to recognize these monsters for what they are, just projections. The moment it does that, the fear vanishes. The Archons lose all their power, and the soul finally breaks that repeating karmic cycle of 142857, escaping the prison for good. Which leaves us with one final massive question. Based on this whole synthesis, is our reality a prison that we must escape? Or is it more like a complex program whose code, that 142857, can be decoded? Or maybe ultimately is it all just a projection of our own consciousness that we have to finally learn to own?